every day is a new chance to start over. It's how do we want to lead? How do we want to build? How do we want to impact, in this season?
Welcome to Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and this is where high-performing entrepreneurs and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome to Shift. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and today's guest is someone who has built and rebuilt at the absolute highest levels of this profession. And today she is here to share the systems, the strategies, and the mindset it takes to make it possible. She went from a kindergarten teacher to a top field leader, helping to build $1 billion sales team. I did not stutter there. That's with a B, at an absolute record pace. She is a master of scaling teams, of simplifying systems, and of creating duplication that actually works in the real world today. But her story, it's not just about building big. It's also about starting over. After a major professional reset, she chose to rebuild from a blank slate and proved again that the same strategies that drive growth can also create incredible comebacks. She's the author of a brand new book that has just come out called The Multiply Method. It is a business blueprint for scaling your sales team and simplifying your business. We'll get into some of that and get some insight from that today. And she is here to unpack how you can use it to multiply your own results. Please help me welcome to the show industry icon and someone I am proud to call a close friend, none other than Sarah Robbins. Sarah, how are you doing?
Hey, Blake, I am great. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited you can fit this in because I know you are everywhere right now.
It's been fun.
Well, I've seen you on this podcast and that podcast and this social media and that social media, and you are doing it. You are living it. And I appreciate taking some time for all of us today to pour into us and fill us in on some of the things you're up to. So thank you for your time.
Well, I'm excited. I cannot wait to help other people to multiply today.
Well, we'll get into it. And I know I was one of the, I guess, lucky ones that got kind of some early access. So we'll get into all that in a minute. And I want this conversation maybe to go in places that you haven't had a chance to go in the many other podcasts and outlets you have been on. And I know it's going to be a great one for our listeners. But let's rewind real quick. So I know your story. We've had a chance to build a relationship over the last couple of years, but I also know that this conversation will likely get in the hands of a lot of individuals that don't know you, right? They don't know some of the backstory. And I think that context is important before we get into some of the systems that are working today. So let's rewind the clock and kind of give us a little bit about where this all began, kind of that $1 billion run and kind of where we're at today.
I was a kindergarten teacher teaching. It was the recession of '08. When Michigan's economy took a turn for the worst, so did my job security. I was actually the most requested teacher in the building, but teacher tenure trumps performance. So I was low man on the totem pole facing the loss of my job. And I initially started freelancing for different companies to just supplement my income. And basically what that looked like was I was doing events, making $20 an hour. One of those companies was a skincare company. And I was doing events in the right place at the right time when eventually they reached out and they're like, hey, we've got good news and bad news. Bad news first. You're going to lose this job as you know it, which great. Just another thing that I was going to lose. But the good news was they had another opportunity. They were going to leave retail and go into direct sales. And I will tell you, I didn't know anything about the industry except for the fact that I said I would never do it, but never really knew why. I'm not a networker. I was more shy by nature. I didn't know a lot of people, and I certainly hadn't sold, a thing. And so it was my mom, who was a savvy serial entrepreneur, who was like, we would be crazy not to do this. And so I'm the firstborn kid. I'm compliant. I listen to my mom, thank goodness. And I'm like, well, I'll do it, but I'll do it part-time. And so that's how I started. And I was not a fast start. It took me 3 months to recruit my first person. I originally started selling, and it was actually funny. My mom and I were like, this is so huge. Don't tell anybody about the business. So we actually kept it a secret for a while, which is funny, but it's actually true. So we just started to sell, and I did really well. I was eventually, I started to, make a couple $100 and eventually replaced my teaching income and just in doing that part-time hours. And I remember I started going to industry events because we didn't really have mentors. We didn't have an upline. It was my mom and I. We didn't even have a compensation plan. So I'm like, I have to figure out how this business is built, because I started to read books. I would hear the stories of the people who did it. And I'm like, okay, we can really take this next level by starting to build a sales team. And so that's what we did. We started sharing and things took off. And I remember that first year, just seeing kind of that like exponential growth. And I was going, oh my gosh, I could really make something of this. So I actually decided to put my leave of absence in as a teacher, but I just never went back. I'm like, I still feel like I owe somebody an explanation there. But within that first 5 years, we eventually led our team to do over $1 billion in sales and served hundreds of thousands of people on our team, millions of customers. And of course, it changed countless lives too.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a large team, right? Yeah. I mean, you hear a lot of numbers in this channel, but $1 billion in revenue is a massive team. And to go there from a beginning, an idea, and someone that was scared to even tell someone about the business is quite a story. And I know through all of that, how long was that kind of time period from the moment you kind of got started to kind of like the high point? So we have some context.
It was about 5 years. But again, it was like that first year was a slow go. But when we finally realized, what we were doing, and we started creating really just simple systems for our team and plugging in and finding leaders and all of that. The best part about that story was, and I just like, these are the little pieces of the story that I want to make sure like we pick up, was all of our leaders. We did not sponsor one person, one leader from another company. It was all homegrown. None of us, like we were moms, we were stay-at-home moms, we were working moms. The majority of my team, because it was skincare, was mainly women and a few good men, but we did not have industry experience. We didn't bring people in with industry experience. And I do think that was an interesting part of the story. But again, we just kind of kept things simple because we didn't have anything to compare it to.
I know you had this huge meteoric rise, right? You were the number one, right, at a very large, and for most of the time, very well-respected company right across the channel. Probably a company or a brand, if any of us, rewind the clock, were to make some bets, it'd be like, this is a legacy brand, right? This is a company that's going to be around for a while. And, I know we had a conversation earlier this year, and I want to spotlight this for all the listeners because I'm going to ask Sarah to go in to a little bit of the story here, but I really want to get to where she is today. Yeah. But I want to honor, Sarah, the road you've had to go through over the last year plus. So for everybody listening, we did a spotlight across DSN through the Shift podcast earlier this year that goes deep on where Sarah had to navigate of a company that decided to change its business model, decided to make a pivot, and decided to really challenge everybody that was a part of that community to kind of reset and restart. And we go deep in a conversation in a prior podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you need to. It needs to be like mandatory listening for everybody in this industry. So Sarah, I just want to set that up. But I do want you to go into that story here a little bit for those that haven't heard it, and then resource them to the full conversation where those lessons are so eloquently spotlighted on kind of a prior episode. But kind of take us there. You went to this rise, this $1 billion team, this number one in a company, to all of a sudden not,
Yeah.
right? So take us to that blank slate.
Yeah. And the first thing I will say, because I always want to leave hope and I don't want people to hear my story and have fear and go, oh no, what's going to happen? Here's the thing. The industry is over 100 years old. The industry has evolved. It has changed. Used to be the days of the Avon ladies knocking door to door. So as, times change, right? So does the industry. But ultimately, these stories, even though they send big shock waves, they're fewer and far between as it relates to the amount of companies that have been out there, that are out there today. And ultimately, I wouldn't choose to stay in the industry if I had fear. I look and I'm like, where else could we do something on our time, our terms, that's low cost, that's a lower risk, right? Where I can change not only my own life, my family's life, but lives at scale. So I do love to just share that piece. But it was July 15th last year. I got a call. It was an unscheduled leadership call. There was an attorney on the line. And again, our company, we had taken $1 billion cash injection, private equity. And they decided they were going to change the model. And they were going to bring it affiliate, which basically meant we would lose 99.9% of our income, nearly all of it. And we had a 60-day runway to just basically figure it out. And I called you because there's a few people in the industry that I'm like, I really respect that. They understand the industry. They have seen things from the perspective of the field, of company owner, of company leadership, et cetera. And, I immediately went to work. I didn't sit in a corner and eat a tub of ice cream. I'm like, what am I going to do? I have all these people who trusted me. I had built great relationships. And that is, by the way, the mark of a good leader. You lead in good times and in hard times. You lead on the mountain and in the valley. There are some leaders, it's like if something happened to their company, nobody would follow them to the bathroom. I had a team of people who trusted me and they're like, what are we going to do? So I didn't have time to mourn or grieve. I just got into action. And I remember talking to you and you're like, what do you want to do? And it was every kind of like option and things that I had thought of, things that I didn't. Did I want to do a corporate role? I was like, oh, no, thanks. Did I want to start a company? I was like, whoa, I've got 2 babies, like the season of my life. And it literally was like, I've got the best gig on the planet. Of course, I want to do this again. And so I doubled down on my hope and my belief in the industry. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And again, I couldn't imagine doing anything different. I will say it's like there were so many things in that season that I was grateful for. Number one, I was grateful that I did double down on relationships in the industry, but also leadership with my team. Good times, hard times. I was doing weekly calls 18 years in. So that's the great news. The other thing was I had a mentor early on who taught me, live on 20% of what you make. So we saved, we invested. So we weren't in a place where we're like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Like the whole world is just like, crumbling down. It sucked. It was not happy to go through, but it's like, okay, we can make a decision with peace and leverage that little 60-day runway to kind of like figure out what do we want to do next. So there was just a lot of little seeds of wisdom that people had planted in me over the years. But I was always great at, building relationships and keeping relationships over time as well. And I think that really helped with that whole transition piece.
Sarah, I didn't know I wanted to ask you this question until kind of this moment. But I do feel connected to your story and your journey because we had just started kind of our, relationship only, I think, a few months prior to you having that moment. And I do remember that phone call, like right when you got the news and you were in that kind of like panic state or that state of disbelief. And for everybody listening, we're a year out on the other side, right? So Sarah's talking about this and she has energy and kind of this positive slant, but like, imagine being in a moment where you spent your life building something to the highest point with, tens of thousands of people that were relying on you and believing in you. And then in literally an instant to something totally outside your control, you found out your whole world was going to going to change, right? I mean, you put yourself in that scenario, it's not an easy situation, right? And there's any number of decisions you could have made that all would have been maybe justified or warranted. And I think most people, Sarah, in that moment probably would have just said, I'm done. I'm curious, a little over a year later now, looking back, you just gave us some wisdom. Is there any new distinctions? Is there any like new insights? Is there any like the Sarah of today, 1 year past those moments? Now you're looking back on the last 12 months that I'm sure have flown by. Is there any new like, wow, you didn't think about that or you didn't realize that? I'm looking for any kind of new thinking or new shifts now that we're 1 year from that moment. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is this whole idea, and this is where we can get just so caught up in what we do, was just a shift in identity I had done. So it was something called the identity exchange. So it was a 6-week study, and it was with a bunch of different leaders. And I'm just going to tell you, if like, for those who don't know me, this is so opposite of my personality. Like my husband would crack up laughing. Like, when you go to those conferences and they're like, give your neighbor a back rub. You're like, no, thanks. I'm going to go to the bathroom right now. This is awkward. I'm one of those people. And so for me to do a 6-week study with a bunch of strangers that I didn't know, like in a small Zoom room, I had no idea, but this was leading up to all of that happening. And it was kind of like stripping away our identity of like who we think we are based on what we do, the roles we have, the titles, the this, the that, and all of those things. And at the end of it, I'm like, really, who am I and what do I do well? And it's really just boiling it down to a couple of words. And I'm like, teacher and a leader. I love teaching. This is why I love coaching. I love taking something that people think is hard, like sales or social media, and make it simple, not to make it complex, but I love seeing things unlock in other people. No wonder I was great as a teacher. I love, 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 love. Like I make a PowerPoint and I am so excited. It makes me so happy. I'm like, I love teaching. But also, too, I love leading. And no wonder that I did really well in a classroom setting, in a team setting, et cetera. And I think that piece of it was because I had gone through it prior, I was not worried about losing this status of like top earner, founding consultant. It's like all the things that people say when they introduce you on a stage. And it kind of like let me level set to go, you know what? I'm not starting over. We're starting with wisdom. We're starting with experience, and to just feel really at peace with where we were starting. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I didn't even realize until, of course, coming out on the other side and the emotions kind of starting to die and all of those things, is to say, I'm so glad that I did that because I think I could have been in a different place, right? Because literally losing everything, you don't just lose an opportunity, you lose community, right? It's like there's all of these relationships attached. People go different places. I mean, that's just the reality of what happens. Thankfully, again, because we had built good relationships and friendships, I can still watch those people on social media succeed and do other things and cheer them on and say genuinely, like, they are a friend, and that person and that relationship, it was priority. It mattered. It still mattered. But I think doing that deep work of like, you're not what you do. It's not like the company. It's not what you sell. It's not the title. It's not the thing. It's, again, the capacity that we're called to serve other people.
Sarah, what you're describing, I don't know why. I don't know if it's the world we live in, the system we grow up in, the people that we're around, but so many of us, I think the norm is we attach our identity, our self-worth, our self-value to what we do, right? Or what we accomplish, right? Or the achievement or the title. That when you go through a season, right, where that gets challenged or stripped away completely, it can be emotionally devastating. It's not just the hit to the bank account or the safety or the security or the financial or the people or the things. It's like, who am I without all of this? So for you to share that, I think all of us can relate and gain some lessons to all that stuff isn't you, right? But you got to go through that to maybe figure out kind of who you are. What advice would you have? Starting over, resetting.
Yeah.
And for those listening, it doesn't mean you have to go through a traumatic situation where a company changes their business model. In my experience, 26 years, we're constantly restarting, reinventing, resetting, even if it's on the same path with the same brand, the same company. Sarah, what advice would you have for someone that feels like they're in a season of a reset or a restart, even in the lane they're in right now? What advice would you give?
Yeah. Biggest thing is that power of making the decision. It's like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm committed to for this season. And for me, it's like, I'm going to do it joyfully. I am going to do it gratefully. I am going to choose, like I chose to forgive. I chose to have faith in this new season. It's like, this is what we are going to do. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but I look back and I'm like, even when I started my first business, I struggled, and then made a decision. And then all of a sudden things took off. And for me, it was like, plant the flag, make the decision. I'm going to have to, not be distracted by other things or even other things I want to do in this season. Cause I'll real talk. It's like, I have worked more over the past year than I did, the previous several years. Again, I always worked hard, but let me just say this. When you start completely over, not a customer, it is with a new standard of excellence. And I'll give the tiniest example. Again, I was hosting the weekly calls, doing that for my team. Okay, everybody, excite, invite, bring people on. We're going to close people for you. This is great. And we did. But now I look and I'm like, it's just a different level of excellence. I'm like fine tooth comb. It's like, okay, I'm going to make the invitations for you. We're going to put them in a little Google Drive. You're going to have the inviting language. You're going to have the newsletter templates. You're going to have the scripts. You're going to have everything you need. And again, it's just with a different level of excellence. Why? Because I'm starting over. And so I will say it's kind of this idea of make the decision, re-recruit yourself, but do everything with a level of excellence that literally you look and you say, okay, this is what we're doing for this period of time. And it's no matter what, and I think that was, critical in kind of reigniting the excitement too. For us, we had to reignite excitement of leaders who have been in the industry for over a decade, some nearly 20 years.
And I've found that skill set, that ability to reinvigorate, to re-inspire, to reset, right, to reinvent. That's what the greats have to do in this channel. And I think maybe just as entrepreneurs in general, right? In the world we're in today, where there is so much change and so much evolution and so much velocity, you have to be able to constantly reinvent and continue that enthusiasm. In your case, it was obviously extreme and dramatic, right? From this giant peak to this total restart. But I think for all of us, right, we want to constantly be in kind of that state of reinvention. So for those of you guys that are listening that haven't heard Sarah's full story, definitely go listen to our last conversation. It was earlier this year on the pod, because we go deep. And it's interesting, Sarah, because it's almost like we all get to live this journey with you, right? Of kind of through these seasons and how their perspective has changed. But it really is so good and something everybody should listen to. But during all of this, you're writing a book, right? And I gotta tell you a personal story. So I have my copy. I don't know if you, for those of you guys that are watching this on video here, I have my copy. And Sarah, I gotta tell you, because obviously what I went through this year with me and my family. So I only have 2 books in my life right now, right?
No way.
So I only, I had this amazing book collection of all the books I read in my whole life and all the shelf of all, but I only have 2, right? My sister had borrowed my original Think and Grow Rich that I totally didn't know that she borrowed. I had no idea that she borrowed it. She just gave it to me 2 weeks ago. She didn't want to give it to me because she wanted to bring up the fact that my whole book collection burned down, but she just gave it to me 2 weeks ago. So I have my original Think and Grow Rich, And I have my Sarah Robbins, the multiply method. That is my book collection right now.
Oh,
And next time I see you, though, I looked at it. Next time I see you, you're signing it for me. So
yeah,
that
that's
this
it.
will
I'll give
be.
you the shiny copy too. I'll
I
give
got the shiny one.
better yet, I'm gonna give you the shiny copy. No, you and I though, like, it's this idea of rebuilding, for you,
mhm.
it was life. For me, it was a part of our life. And you and I could talk all day about lessons to be learned from that. But I tell you, it humbles you, it strengthens you. And you learn new sides of you that it's like, only life can teach you those lessons, and it makes us, I've watched you walk through, like, obviously losing your home, close, because we're in California too, so close enough. Watch you walk your family through it, and it's amazing to see how you guys have just risen to just a new level of faith and strength. Obviously walking my family through, the hard times and transitions and all of it. But in all seriousness, though, I'll say I'm really proud of how you have just weathered that season too.
Oh, I appreciate it. And just for everybody listening as well, I'm not just saying this because we're live on a pod, but Sarah, you personally, right, your messages, your guidance, right, our relationship, your support. And I know in all of that, it's just complete pure intention.
Yep.
And that showed me kind of who you are, right, as a person and as a leader. So I appreciate that. And I know you've gone through, again, in a similar yet different way, the same stuff, right? We all go through stuff. You and I maybe too extreme, right? But I'm sure everybody listening, right? It's all relative. We all go through our own seasons of hard, our own seasons of challenge, and it's how we show up that determines not only where we go, but who we become in the process. And that is the journey. And that's why I'm excited to dig into this, because like I can only imagine you were already working on this project, because I remember in our early conversations,
Yes.
it was a vision. It was something you were working on in the back burner. I don't know how much or how far you were. And then you go through this last 12 months and all the emotion and all the things, and you continue to work on like what's in here.
Yeah.
And I know that this right here is a different book because it was written through this season than had it been released prior to, right? I know all of that. So my question before we get into the book, I want to know, like, what kept you doing it? Like, how did you keep doing this?
Oh, I'm so thankful the book wasn't released, because honestly, there's so many books, not just in our industry, but in general. And it's written from kind of this historical perspective of, here's all the things that we did to achieve all of these great things. And that's wonderful. Wisdom is wonderful. It's like, that's where mentorship comes in, right? It's like there's that side there, that's that piece of wisdom. But coaching, like when you're active and you're coaching, right? Like you're in the game, you're learning a new skill. To have a coach that has that skill set, like they're actively doing, that's a totally different ballgame. So the book was like ready to go. And then the business, blank slate. And I remember just thinking, there is no way I can actually launch a book right now. But also, too, I was like, apparently there's another chapter to be written. So what it caused me to do, we didn't launch it until literally 1 year later. I read through everything, every single word, chapter by chapter, probably about 20 times. I know my own book by heart. But what I will say that it caused me to do was to say, is this really what I'm saying right now? Is this really what I'm doing right now? And I wrote, and then I rewrote. And then I'm like, actually, what are the things that I'm specifically saying? What are the things that I'm specifically doing? So it combines a really unique perspective of, yes, somebody who built one of the world's most successful sales teams with her team, and somebody who's in the trenches with that wisdom, starting completely over with 0 customers. Like, I didn't get to carry a customer over, and to start from scratch, but to have a sense of urgency to go, we've got to build something big. We've got to do it again. Like, I've attached my name and my network to doing this whole industry, this whole business again. And to say, here's what's working today. And really, my whole thing is, after everything we went through, and I know you and I have had so many conversations about this, my heart is this industry. I mean, it is, and it is literally to redeem this industry. I just think a healthy industry is healthy for all of us. Like we have to change the public perception. And how? By what we're putting out there in public. What are we saying on social media? Like, what are we doing at events? Like, all of these things. And so for me, it's kind of like part of that gift and that give back is to say, here's what worked. Here's what's happening today. And there are some things that 20 years ago, they're still the same. Follow-up, relationships, all of those things. But there are things today with technology, social media, they have changed. And so it was really neat, also to a lot of hard work, to kind of like put it all to the pressure cooker and say, what is actually working today? What is actually working right now?
The only reason that we're even having this conversation here live on Shift, right, with DSN is because I know your intention as a person is really what you just said, right? I mean, you love this channel. It really is about, right, making an impact and helping people, right? It's not just a personal brand play, right? It's not just, over here. And there's nothing wrong with all of that as like marketing strategies. And, I know we teach a lot of that in personal branding and things that everybody should do to kind of elevate their conversation. But I know that this book is more than words on a page. Like it's your life, it's your soul. And I know that you want to get out in the world because you believe it can help people in the lane they're in and the company they're in and the product they're in elevate and grow. And a rising tide does raise all ships, because it is unique for us, especially at DSN, to even talk about a book on a podcast. But given the relationship, who you are, the dynamic and the value that we believe it can provide, that's kind of why I wanted to spotlight it and have you on the show and give us some of the insight kind of behind the pages. And I want to just double click. The fact that you wrote it through the season makes it unique in itself, because it's the perspective, right, of that $1 billion build before, right, which with the wisdom, and now the actual blueprint or the playbook you're actively using today to rebuild and create waves from a restart. So just the nature of the timing already makes it truly something special. So I just wanted to say that, kind of me to you, and kind of why I was excited to have you back on the show as you're the only person that's been on the show twice. Give us some insight where we're at today in the world and a channel where people are at. You have a pulse on where so much of, right, the leadership in the field is at. Give us some insight on a couple of the systems. Maybe you go into detail in the book that we can get value from today.
Yeah. So I love taking each part of the business and kind of creating a simple framework for it. So not so much, scripts and things like that, but giving people a framework, a guide to follow for each part of the business. Like one, right, starting with, and by the way, it kind of builds upon each chapter, prospecting, the art of inviting, which when you think about, that really is the number one skill set that we have to master if we want to be successful in this type of business. From there, it's like, okay, presenting. Now I've piqued somebody's curiosity. How do I turn curiosity into a new customer? So how do I share this? Give me a simple framework. From there, it's like closing. There's so many people that are like, she ghosted me. Where did she go? She entered the witness protection program. I'm like, no, actually, like, did you close them? Because your business is your priority. It's not theirs. You, because it's your priority, they're up here to you right now. Like they've got the kids, they've got life, they've got their career. You're all the way down here. Like you are the last thing that they are thinking about today, not because they don't love you, not because they're not interested in your products, but like you have to prioritize that conversation. And then it goes into things like, effective enrollment and onboarding. It's interesting. In my years of doing this, I actually found, you think about all the people we know who have big customer bases. There are people we know who have hundreds of customers, thousands of customers. They love the product, clearly. They believe in the story of the company. Why are they not sponsoring people? And I found it was like this subliminal fear. So many people didn't know they have, but in getting in conversation, I would ask, why are you not sponsoring people into business? That's how you multiply your sales. You create a sales team. And they have this fear. We've all heard of like fear of failure, but it's like a fear of failing other people. If I introduced somebody to the business, what would I do next? And so it's bringing people through that process. And then of course, like having a simple system for selling. So obviously that seems so, elementary. Of course, it's like we're in sales. But I remember talking to Brett Blake, it was at the DSN event, and him saying, so many companies have great products, great pay plans, but they fail to do the work of developing a simple selling system that the average person can do. It's not just what I can do. And heck, I didn't know millions of customers to sell billions of dollars of product to. But we kind of get enamored with this idea of like the word momentum. Like, okay, I'm going to lead my team into momentum. Well, how? Momentum is not about what you do. It's actually about what can be duplicated, right? And so creating a simple system where it's like momentum is created by a lot of people, each doing a little bit more. And all of it is simple. I say what we simplify, we multiply, because again, if we are a business of multiplication or duplication, and if we say it's a system simple enough that the average person can do it, that's the key. That's the key how we grew the first time. And even the second time around is having those really simple systems, those simple frameworks in place.
Well, I know you cover a lot of frameworks in the book, a lot of systems, a lot of ways to multiply. And of everything you cover, all the different systems and chapters, which one do you think is maybe one of the most overlooked, right, or undervalued in the market today?
Yeah, I think it's effective enrollment and onboarding. I think too often it's like we throw somebody a link and we just don't realize that customer service is something we create. Yes, the company does it at a level as well, but we create it. It's the experience they have with us. And again, whatever we do, it duplicates. So it's like somebody starts, set an enrollment appointment with them. It doesn't take long to walk them through to help them to successfully start. But again, I think most people are confused. Like, what does that look like? What do I do? And, when I look and I think about, I just had a brand new business partner, two weeks in, she got off to a great start, interviewed her, had her share with the team, like what's working. And she said, if I had to really boil it down, Sarah had me focus on one simple skill set, and it was inviting. We've all invited to something before, a birthday party, right? Like we've all done it. And she said, and she had me launch my business. We're not a party planning company. I don't have party incentives, whatever. But I said to her, Amanda, here are the next steps. And I think that's key. It's like, if I asked her, do you want to launch your business? That would be like asking me, do I want to work out today? Not really. But will I work out? Sure. Because I'm going for a goal. But with Amanda, I'm like, here are the next steps. This is what we're going to do. Let's put a date on the calendar. Where I gave her choice was, how do you want to do it? In person, virtual, you want to go live on social media, whatever. And she said that first 2 weeks, all I was focused on was inviting. That was it. Didn't bog her down with a bunch of other things to do. And it's like, that's where she got her first crop of customers. That's where she made her first bonus. That's where she got her first paycheck. Her belief was built. And now she's like, oh, okay, I actually want to do this. And then they survive through month 2. It's like, okay, I want to keep building. I want to keep going. I want to build on this momentum. And then also too, it's like, we forget, it's like low hanging fruit, our network of people who love us. Those are the most likely people to support us. And so actually that's the people that we want to start sharing with right away. So teaching them that simple art of inviting.
Mm-hmm. So simple, right? But these are the things that are foundational. These are the things that work. And I love how you take something that can feel overwhelming or I'm not sure where to start. And you break it down into really like simple steps that are possible that move us forward. And I love how you do that through kind of all the phases of building, right? Not only selling a product or service, but building a team and building a community and leading. Sarah, I know at the time that we're having this conversation, right? We're like days, I think, away from the book coming out. So I know it's not even out yet. I think by the time that this airs, it will have just been made available, on Amazon and on your site. And we'll give all the links, guys, in the show notes, and I'll mention them at the end. But I know you're strategic, right? So I know you're already thinking about, okay, well, once this exists as a tool, right, which is really what it is, do you have a plan for how you're going to use this in your existing team? right? As a way to teach and as a way to empower. Like, I want to know the Sarah Robbins playbook of how you're going to use this thing that's about to go live in your actual organization. And what's the approach, right? What are you going to do? How are you going to use this to move your team forward?
Well, something that we started to do, obviously, with people who are doing the pre-orders, but then obviously then taking it to our teams is kind of bringing people through a university and breaking it down into simple skill sets. So prospecting, presenting, closing. So those are like, and we just did this, by the way, we did it. It was like 3 sessions. We did 1 week, then we took a little break. Then next session was, or the next 3 was effective enrollment and onboarding, customer acquisition and retention. So sales and sales that multiply, and then how to sell on social, which people always love, like the great way to end and kind of go. That's actually, by the way, Blake, how my first book, for those OGs back in the day, they know the Rock and Robbins. Okay. Was that Rock Your Network Marketing Business. I did a 12-week training for my team. And at the end, it was over summer. I was like, here are all the things we need to know to be successful in sales. And I was like, shoot, I just had 12 chapters. This should be a book. And I had no clue what I was doing. And I wrote a book. So it's going to be taking and training these systems to our team. And we already did that as we were, first launching. That was one of the first things. One of the first trainings we did was effective enrollment for a customer and for a brand ambassador. And how do you onboard them? But obviously keeping it fresh and then sharing all of the wisdoms and systems with our team as well.
Well, I think that's so important. And for those of you guys that are listening, right, it is a framework that can be, I think you said, a series or a curriculum. And I'd urge everybody to use it as such, right? Yes, it's a book that you can get, you can read. Obviously, if you can collapse time and learn from a wealth of knowledge and experience through the highs and through the lows, right, that's just going to collapse time on your own journey to where you want to go, right? Learn from other people's perspectives so you can help navigate, right, your seasons that you're in right now. So yes, do that for yourself. But again, it can be about much more than that. It can really be a curriculum and a structure that you can teach and you can use throughout your team to help your team multiply. And obviously, if you and your team and your group are all multiplying at the same time, well, that's what we all want in our business and the impact we can make. Sarah, what's what's your personal favorite part of the whole book?
I love just the prospecting framework that I teach. And the reason being is because I used to be so shy. And I literally remember my first time approaching a stranger. I did the network marketing verbal vomit all over her. She looked at me like a deer in headlights. I ran back to my car. I called my mom, who was my sponsor, and cried. I'm like, how am I ever going to do this? How will I be successful in a business of networking if I'm afraid to talk to people? And so just teaching this simple framework, which basically in book, it's so simple, it talks about complement, conversation, connection. This can work in person. This can work if you're on social media, you're wanting to reconnect with somebody. So if I were to, go on my social media, and again, people are always like, where do I find people? I'm like, it's not where do you find people? We're all connected to people. We're surrounded by people. What they really want to know is, what do I say to them? I don't want to make myself a fool. I don't want to slide in the DMs, spam my best friend. Like, what do I actually say? And it's teaching them conversation starters. So it's like a compliment. Scroll their social, go to their profile. So till you find something nice to say. Could just be they moved, they got a new job, whatever the case may be. Kids going to college. How do we get into conversation? We ask a question and we say genuinely interested in the other person. And then we can connect when the time feels right and weave in the business. So basically how it sounds is, hey, Blake, congratulations on your new job or the launch of this new product or whatever it is, right? I'm going to make a genuine compliment. Congratulations. I know it's been a while. Your post popped up in my feed. Question, how have you guys been? And getting into conversation. When we prioritize people over profit, relationship over revenue, not only do people want to do business with us, they want to refer people onto us if they aren't interested. And then it's only then when the time feels right. And it could be a series of conversations. It could be days. It could be weeks to just simply say, hey, I see you're in such and such area. I have a business that's expanding there. Have you heard of it before? And just ask a question. Have you heard of it? and then say, I would love to take this offline, get caught up, like get connected in real life. Could I meet you, treat you for coffee, or even like a virtual coffee? And just, again, build on that relationship. And the great news is like at the end of all of it, your life becomes rich in relationship, right? But we have to get so good at making it about the other person, being interested in other people, asking questions, right? And I could do that in person too, like a random stranger that I don't know, compliment, question, leads to conversation, right? And when the time is right, connect and say, hey, I've loved connecting today. Let's make friends on Facebook or whatever it is, right? And just continue that conversation, continue building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, yes, we sell a product, but we're also in a people business too.
I love it because it's simple, right? What you're giving us right now, it's simple, it's practical. Everybody that's listening, you can take exactly what Sarah just gave you. You can go do it right now, and you can instantly start creating more traction and more conversation, right? And more engagement in your business. You can do that with what she just gave you. And that's what I love, right? Is just the simple frameworks that we can actually apply instantly to start moving our business forward, right? And generating results. Here's a personal question for you. Out of all the lessons and all the frameworks and all the systems and all the things, what was the most challenging for you to actually learn as a leader out of everything that you're giving us in that book?
Okay. Most challenging for sure was duplication. And there is a chapter for leaders. And that was, okay, how do I develop other people from identifying kind of emerging leaders to, developing kind of like leaders that are kind of at that launching pad of leadership. They're about to create a legacy business and a legacy team. And then I think the biggest thing is, how do you lead leaders or inspire leaders to lead? And so I think that was the biggest piece. But again, it's one of the most important things. It's one of the most important parts of our business.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you for being honest with us. And, it is a journey for all of us, right? You never outgrow growing. And I appreciate that you're reflecting on your own journey and synthesizing or distilling all that down into something that we can, put between two covers and learn from, right? For all of us to apply, to empower, to inspire. Sarah, I want to leave some time for any kind of closing thoughts. We've already covered a lot. You've given us a lot. And I know, right, kind of at this point in most of these podcast conversations, I kind of do like a rapid fire round. And I know that because I've asked you those questions before. So I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I'm not going to ask those questions to you since you're the only one that's been on this show, right? More than once. But I'm going to reframe it. And what I'd love to know when it comes to mindset shifts, right? Yeah. When it comes to the stories we tell ourselves, going from one thing to another. The way I'm going to reframe it for you today, for all of us, is in the last 12 months. If you look at the journey from, that reset to the Sarah Robbins of today, what has been one of the single most significant belief or mindset shifts in this current season of your life, right, that you have adopted or you're now telling yourself?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good one. I think there's a few things. I think for me, the biggest thing, and I know this isn't a business tip, but this is just truth. When you ask me that question, this is just truth, is forgiveness. I look back and I'm like, I could have been so held hostage by what happened to me that it caused me to not begin again. Mm-hmm. It would have devastated my family. It would have probably caused illness and disease in me. I mean, right? We think about it, it's like the body does keep score. And I could have been so angry at that betrayal and how all of it went down, and even not only the communication of, but the lack of communication. And would I have been justified to be upset or angry? Of course. But honestly, it would have devastated us. And so in that moment, and because you have had a front row seat of watching it, how I've talked about it behind closed doors, because I had conversations with you and with others publicly on social media. And it was literally a decision that day. It's like, I'm not going to fall into that path of betrayal, and I am going to forgive and forgive quickly. But now, how does that translate into today? Because we all go through things. Life starts lifing if you live enough life.
Mm-hmm.
Something will pop up today, and I'm like, if I could have forgave that, I can forgive this person or this thing. And I'm telling you, it's like I just live in that area, like in such freedom to just go, I'm not going to hold on to all of this stuff, you know? And it's like, and you kind of look at people too in a different way. And I'm sure you can relate to this. It's like, you look at people and go, they're probably just going through something. And, you know, life is hard, and we give people more grace. And so I think because we do, and now I'll tie it into the business, because we do work with a lot of people, right? It's like there's good news and there's bad news. There's a lot of people. It's like I do have such grace kind of in this new season of leadership for people as well. It's allowed me to see things so much differently.
Mm-hmm. I love how you used the word freedom when describing that, because I know most people are listening. We're all entrepreneurs, right? We've chosen this channel to build businesses and empower people. And I'm willing to bet if you're listening right now, that word freedom is probably pretty high on your personal value system. But we always think freedom means, you know, the money in the bank account, right? Or freedom means the ability to travel and see the world or do the things that we want. A lot of times we don't realize the ultimate freedom is actually what you just described, right? It's the freedom from the emotional weight that we choose to put on ourselves based on how we respond to the things that we go through. And learning how to let go of that actually creates more freedom than the trip to Bali or the zeros in the bank account. And, you know, hopefully, guys, hearing Sarah's story and these conversations help you get to that place where you can have that own insight, that own reflection, and your own lifing, right? That you're either in or you're going to be in, because that's just the nature of this journey that we're all on. You know, Sarah, this has been an awesome conversation. I want to leave time for anything we haven't covered so far. I know there's a bunch of people now that are like, okay, Blake, tell me where I can get this thing. Guys, we live in a world where you know where everything is. So the book is called The Multiply Method. By the time this is releasing, it would have just come out. You can get it on Amazon. Just go search The Multiply Method, Sarah Robbins. You can get it there. Or I urge you guys just to go directly to themultiplymethod.com. Don't forget themultiplymethod.com. Just because Sarah's put together a bunch of value adds on top of just the book. So whether you buy it on Amazon or go to the site or start at the site, I know there's like a workbook. And Sarah, you mentioned like your passion for social selling, right? And social media, right? And personal branding and recruiting. And I know there's just a bunch of kind of value on curriculums, courses, workbooks, all that stuff for free, right? With kind of the book purchase at themultiplemethod.com. So for those of you guys that are looking to level up, regardless of you're just getting started, right? Or you're someone that's at that leadership level. Maybe you're in a dip right now. Maybe you're looking to just rise. Maybe you're in momentum and you just want to accelerate. I guarantee you there's going to be some systems, right, that are going to relate to the season you're in right now. And why not learn from the wisdom and the perspective for yourself? And maybe some of you might get so much value, you choose it to use it as a tool and a structure and a curriculum like Sarah's going to do for her team. And I know a lot of people will do to multiply your business by sharing the gift with others. So, you know, Sarah, thanks for the time today. You've given us a lot in the nuggets and the wisdom and the simple systems and some practical things we can apply even from today's conversation. Anything left before we round out? You know, any other closing thoughts on your mind or your heart?
Yeah, I just think, you know, we have such a beautiful business model that changes lives at scale. And sometimes we may not need a new opportunity, but just a commitment to the one that we were given. And so I think it's time, you know, I've had to look and say, how do I want to lead in this season? And I get to choose. And I do get a choice when I'm starting over. But guess what? Every day is a new chance to start over. It's how do we want to lead? How do we want to build? How do we want to impact, you know, in this season? And so that's a choice. We all get a choice today and how we do that.
Well, Sarah, I appreciate you as an individual person, who you are, how you show up. You are a light for so many people. And I absolutely love your story, because your story is one that inspires and empowers, and it shows all of us what is possible when we choose to let go, when we choose to forgive, when we choose to find the reason why we're all here in the first place and focus on the gifts that we have and the gifts that we can give, regardless of the circumstance or the situation or all the things that come our way, whether they're in our control or outside our control, you can continue to build, lead, win, and impact, right? If you stay in that zone, and you are a living example of that. And thanks for packaging a lot of your lessons and your learnings in some chapters, right? That we can all read, we can all learn, we can all apply. So appreciate you. And for everybody listening, guys, today's conversation, right? Let's help raise the tide across the channel. I know you know a lot of individuals that are on the journey alongside of us. Share this conversation. It's the only reason we're here. It's the only reason I'm here. It's the only reason Sarah's here. Is because we know that these conversations can make a difference. And sometimes just that one little shift, that one little insight is the exact gift someone needs at the point in time they're in. And we get to be that person that gives that invitation, that gives that gift. And we can do that by just sharing a conversation like today. And you can find today's conversation and video, by the way, on YouTube, or access all of them at shiftpodcast.com. Sarah, thank you for the time. Good luck on the launch. And we'll be cheering and supporting you here at the Shift community in DSN. Until then, everybody, let's make the shift.